Alrighty, hello again, and everyone, welcome to our FAFSA line by line walkthrough. As you all enter the room, we ask that you all mute yourselves so that everyone can hear properly and everyone can hear the information that is being presented this evening. And so, as I mentioned again, my name is Brandy Kennedy, and I serve as the Director of Student Outreach and Post-Secondary Access with Sayes Guilford. And thank you all again for tuning in for our FAFSA line-by-line walkthrough, where you all will be able to walk through a demonstration on completing your FAFSA or your free application for federal student aid. And this event is hosted by our community partners, and we also have some community guests with us here today. And so we'll go ahead and get started in introducing those partners.
I'd like to say good evening to everyone. My name is Tequila Barnes Hall. I am your regional representative for College Foundation of North Carolina.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Slade. I'm the Assistant Director for Outreach in the Financial Aid Office at UNC Greensboro.
Additionally, we have some great partners who also make events like this possible for you all to have access to these resources. So we have our Carolina College Advising Corps, which is some of our college advisors that are dispersed throughout the schools in Guilford County. And we also have Guilford County schools. And again, I represent Sayes Guilford. So thank you all again for tuning in this evening. Before we get started, I do want to quickly go over some webinar etiquette, just so that everyone can get the most out of this session. I've already mentioned, as you all enter the meeting, please mute yourselves so that everyone can hear the information. There will be an opportunity for Q&A, so that if you have any questions, we ask that you place them in the chat, but there will also be an opportunity for you to unmute yourself and ask Q&A at the end. Next, we'll just say, I'm sure that this won't be an issue, but if you all fail to abide by this or have any interruptions, we will have to remove you from this meeting, just in order to ensure that everyone else is getting the information that they need. So I'm sure that this won't be a problem, but I wanted to briefly go over that. And again, this is just a preview so that as you all sit here and look through this demo, some of you all may be actually walking through and completing your free application for federal student aid. So I just want to emphasize a few things before I hand it over to Ms. Slade, who will walk you all through it. But number one is that today we will be demoing completing the 2022-2023 FAFSA. You will notice that that does not match 2021-2022, because if you are a current senior, then you will be attending college next year, which is the 2022-2023 academic year. Next, we will be using your 2020 tax returns or your parents or guardians. So if you are able to get that information, please do so in the next few minutes. And again, just a reminder that we will have an opportunity for some Q&A if you get a little stuck along the way. So feel free to get those questions and place them in the chat or save them for the end. I will now turn it over to Ms. Deborah Slade, representing UNC Greensboro. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Well, folks, we got a lot to cover tonight. So as Brandy said, if you have your tax information, you can get ready to follow along. I'm going to actually do a live demo. Hopefully the internet and the FAFSA website will work with us today. I'm going to be using a demonstration site, so it's not, we're not completing an actual FAFSA for an actual student, but it is real enough that it gives you a very good idea of what to expect and what information to provide and how the questions are worded. So let me go ahead and share my screen very quickly. And of course, I'm sure I don't have to tell you the importance of filing a FAFSA. I'm pretty sure you know that, in order to get any type of financial aid, any type of assistance, that this is an important application to complete. So you'll go to FAFSA.gov, and this is the actual website. So I do have a screenshot of that. So this is what the actual website will look like. And when you get here, you're going to click on the Start Here, because you're doing a brand new application. So for my purposes tonight, I'm going to be going to this demo site. So when you click on that login, you're going to, or start here, you're going to be presented with this screen. So we're going to fill this out from the standpoint of the student is going in to do this application. So I am the student and I want to access the FAFSA form. Now you notice that there are options for the parent to do the form and for the preparer. Now for the parent, if you are planning to do this, I strongly encourage you for you and your student to be together in doing this, and really ideally let the student be the one to initiate this process. If you click on I am the parent filing the FAFSA, then it's going to ask you to include the student's name and date of birth and social security number, and then you would click continue. If you select I am the student, then you would just log in using your FSA ID. Now, let me stop for a moment because this is very key. Before you start this process, if you have not yet completed the FSA ID creation, please make sure you do that first. And I wouldn't just do it and then go right into the FAFSA because it does take some time for them to match up the information. They will request your name, date of birth, and your social security number to make these matches. So it takes a little bit of time for them to do all of these checks. So make sure you have that, put it in a safe place because it is important information. Parents, you're also going to need your own FSA ID in order to sign the FAFSA, in order to, and you'll see there will be places in here where you can enter that information in so that you can get your tax information imported into the FAFSA. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I want you to just make sure you have that so that you can access this information. So we're going to get started. So I'm lazy, so I'm going to do a lot of copy and pasting here. And also so that we don't have any any typos. So the student's username will be entered here, and then you will put in the student's FAFSA ID, and I'm going to just show you what that looks like. Typically, you would just see the dots, but you do have the option of clicking the show button so that you can make sure that you're entering in the correct information. And then once you've entered that, and again, we're logging in from the student's perspective, you'll click log in. And okay, so how did I know this was going to happen? Let's try that one more time. Okay, yeah, had too many spaces there. This notice will come up. I do encourage you to read that because you're agreeing to accept the terms of entering into this site. So make sure you click the accept button so that you can go further into it. So hopefully we're keeping our fingers crossed. There were some glitches and some slowdowns earlier today. So as Brandy mentioned, there are two different FAFSAs that are available right now. So if you are a high school senior planning to enter college in fall of 2022, you want to do the 2022-23 FAFSA. So don't pay attention to this. This is because this is a demonstration site. A lot of people are coming in and doing this. So I'm going to click the start over. In your case, when you come in to start a FAFSA, your entry is going to just say, start a new FAFSA. So I'm going to click start over. You would just click start.
You're going to have to do this too, babe. I'm going to have to get with Miss Johnson. We got to do this.
Please be sure to mute yourself so that everyone can't hear you and they can hear the session. Thank you.
So at this point, this is another key piece. This is creating a save key. So this is a temporary password that you'll want to create. So if you stop in the middle of completing the FAFSA, you can come back and pick up where you left off and finish the information. I was working with a student today and she got, as far as putting all of her student information in, she was going to need to put in her parents' information. So she created a save key. And that way she was able to come back in later with her parents' information. So I'm going to create a save key and let me click show so you can see what I'm doing here. And then you'll have to re-enter it here. sorry, re-enter it here. And then just remember what that is. So write that down so that if you do have to stop and come back later, you can just re-enter that, just enter that key and come back into the FAFSA. All right, so now we're ready to get started. And I am going to have to do, let's see, don't save that. All right, so one of the things that you'll get is a page full of information. If you need to expand all of these and look at these questions, you certainly can. This gives you information on how to get help with your FAFSA. And these are live links, so you can link onto to get more information. Just a lot of information, how many steps are in there, all of the different places. And as we go through, you'll see at the top of each page, we'll show you the progress and show you where you are in the FAFSA, which section you're on at that particular point. How long will it take? It depends. I've done this as a demo for myself just to make sure I was clear on everything several times, and I had several interruptions in the interim. So it took me about 30 minutes. Now, of course, I've done FAFSAs before, so it may take you a little bit longer if you don't have all of your information handy, but it won't take you forever. And again, remember I said that you can save it, but you do have to come back and complete it. You can save it for up to 45 days. And that way you can, if you do have to wait for information to be mailed to you, or if you have to download something or wait for someone else to be available to complete it, you have time to do that. And then what documents that you need, typically you're going, I won't do that because I don't want to take us out of the, but typically you're going to need your tax return information, your W-2, maybe a copy of your driver's license, a social security card, any bank statements to list asset information. I'll show you where that goes as we get into it. Not a lot of documents, but it's a good idea to maybe, start collecting this and putting it to the side and just putting it handy where you can get to it. Do you have to sign the FAFSA? Yes, you do. There are a couple of ways you can do that. The most secure and quickest way to do that is by having an FSA ID that acts as your username and your password, as well as your signature. Parent, as I said before, you will need one. When you can create that, make sure that you and your student are using 2 different email addresses and 2 different phone numbers when you're creating and linking your FAFSA, your FSA ID. And you can read more about the web security and privacy that surrounds the FAFSA. Remember, this is a federal site. They are charged with continuing to protect your information. So you can be fairly certain that your information is secure. So if you see here across the top, you see that right now we're in step 1 of student demographics. This note here says personal information for student, and you will always see this at each section to remind you of whose information is being requested. Because the FAFSA form belongs to you, the student, you and your always, unless otherwise noted, refers to the student. So just keep that in mind. So this is the student's social security number, student's first name, the student's last name, and the student's date of birth. Now, because I'm working with data that was already created for the demo site, this information was populated already based on that FSA ID that I entered. So this is what will happen for your student as well. So just verify that that's correct, and then go to continue. So the second part of this is the student's email address, and you can enter a phone number if you want. If your student has a phone number, you don't have to, but you can do that. And as I said, remember, there are these little help buttons that pop up that give you more information about each of the questions. Okay, so you see that little question mark there. So go ahead and click enter. Now I always change this around because I like for us to be in state. I don't like to do this. So I'm going to change this to Greensboro. And of course, change the state to North Carolina. And I'm going to change that zip code to Guilford County zip code. All right. So verify that that's correct. And the reason why I did that is because this information, when you complete your FAFSA, is going to be sent to the state that you list as your home state. So when we get to the residency question, or where you live, that is going to be important. So here, as you see, because I changed the state, now it's because it's using logic based on the questions that were answered. Have you lived in North Carolina for at least 5 years? So depending on your answer, you would answer that. If are you a US citizen? And again, this is for the student. Are you the student a US citizen? So here are your options. You can select yes, I am a US citizen or US national. No, but I am an eligible non-citizen. If you click this one, then the next question is going to ask you to enter your, well, we'll just see, your alien registration number. So you would enter that information on this line. And remember, in order to complete the FAFSA, the student has to be a citizen, not the parent. So you can enter that. If you are not a citizen, then you would not be eligible to complete the FAFSA. So we're going to just select, yes, I am a US citizen. And please let our co-hosts know if you have questions, if there's something that's not clear as we're in a section. So I want to make sure that you get your answers. So this section is about the student's education. So what will your high school completion status be? So they're going to be a high school diploma. What college degree or certificate you'll be working on when you enter the school year. Typically, you're going to enter first bachelor's degree if you're going to a 4-year institution. If you're going to a 2-year or community college, you would most likely select associate degree. Or again, depending on the type of program that you're entering. You as high school students would not be entering this, okay? You're not going for an MBA, MD or PhD at this point, maybe eventually, but they're asking, what about next semester when you start the academic year? Now, I've had a lot of students who said, well, yeah, I'm going to eventually go on and get my MBA, and they would check that, and you don't want to do that because it will eliminate your eligibility for some of the federal grants that are only eligible for to undergraduate students. So will you have your first bachelor's degree before you begin the school year? So the answer is no. What will your college grade level be when you begin college? Typically, you would select never attended college first year. Now, if you have been to college before, if you're a transfer student, then you would say attended college before first year. If this is your second year of college, so next year when you complete the FAFSA for 23-24, then you would be a sophomore most likely, and you would select this one. So for this purposes, the purpose of this, we're going to select never attended college first year. This is another important question. Are you interested in being considered for work study? Now, I won't take time in this session to go through all of the various federal aid programs, but I would just say very quickly here for the work study program, if you feel like you want to have a part-time job while you're in college, and maybe you're going to a school where maybe you're going to an area where you're not very familiar with that area, this may be a good opportunity to have a job on campus. It's where you're guaranteed work, you're guaranteed a salary. So I would suggest go ahead and checking that. This only says that you are interested in being considered for it. If you get it and you decide you don't want it, you can always decline it. So it's better to say, yes, I want it, and then decline it later than to say, no, I don't, and not be considered, and then later on realize, oh yeah, I really did want that. It may be more difficult to go back and have that added later. So click continue since we've answered all of those questions. Now for the selective service question, there have been some changes. So for federal aid eligibility, males are no longer required to be registered with Selective Service in order to get federal aid. However, there are still requirements for state aid programs that require that if you are a male student, you have to be registered for Selective Service. Hopefully that will change as we go forward. But for right now, you still need to be registered. So our student is female, so she's going to select female. But if you were a male student and you select male, this is the question, or this is the dialog box that would come up. And then if you're not registered, you can select yes, you are. If you're not registered, then they will ask if you want them to register you with Selective Service. And you can select yes or no. So I'm going to go back and select female. Most register, you can do the Selective Service online at the Selective Service website and make sure that you follow through on that. So if you're a male and you have not yet registered for Selective Service, you're between the ages of 18 and 26, then you want to go ahead and do that if you want to make sure you're eligible or considered eligible for North Carolina state funds. Okay, so we're going to click next. Do you have to have a driver's license in here? You don't have to put one in there. If you don't have a driver's license, that's fine. It's not required. It's only if you have one. So I'm going to skip that. Just leave that blank. But if you have your driver's license, go ahead and pull it out. Enter in your driver's license number and the state in which it's issued. So click continue. If you have been a youth in foster care at any time, you would select yes. For this question, for the purpose of our demonstration, our student is not. And then they're asking some questions about your parents. So what is the highest school completed by parent one? And that's up to you who you designate as parent one. It can be mom or dad. That's entirely up to you. So we're going to say, parent one went to college and parent two finished high school. And then we're going to go to the next page. And again, you can see here how the status changed. So now you've completed the student demographics. Now you're into school selection. So what you're doing here is adding information about the high school that you attended. So what you'll do is do the search. So you want to first select the state for your high school. And we're going to select North Carolina. And then I'm going to go ahead and type in the city because I want this to be a quick search. And you can type in the high school name if you want, but we're going to do a quick search on high schools that are in Greensboro, and then it's going to bring up a list of 42 high schools. Okay, sorry about that. I just got a Spartan alert. My computer just got one of our college alerts, but in any case, so you got 42 high schools to select from. So I know which high school I'm going to select here. So already, so you can see, I'm going to select UNCG Early Middle College because I can. All right, so that would be the college that I'm selecting. I'm going to click continue. And they want you to verify that this information is correct. So they present it to you again, UNCG Early Middle College, City of Greensboro, State of North Carolina. That is correct. You click continue. Okay. So you're going to get some messages now. So this is based on information provided. You determine you may qualify for federal student aid. So then you want to continue through. So this is a point where you're going to start selecting the colleges that you want to submit your information to. And if you remember any of the presentations that you've gone to, you can select and submit this information up to 10 schools. For the sake of brevity tonight, I'm not going to select 10 schools. If you can do a search by school name or state or city or by federal school code. So let's do both. So let's do search by state, city, and we're going to select Greensboro again. And we're going to do a search. And it's going to bring up all of the schools in Greensboro. And let's see, let's choose this one. That looks like a good school. So we're going to select that and you click continue. Now you're not quite done yet because you still have to select how are you planning to live. Are you going to be living on campus, at home with parents, or are you going to live off campus in an apartment with someone else? So we're going to select that this student's going to live on campus. So we still want to add more schools. So let's click this button that says add more schools. So now we're going to do another search. And I really should have done that one by school code, but I think I remember, let's see if I remember this school code for this other school. I don't know. Trying to remember if I remember the school code for this other school. Let me think. See if I can find it. I think I have it here.
It's late. Is there a school code you need? Would you would like? I can find it for you.
I actually had it in my notes, but I didn't put it in this note. But yeah, I got it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I've got it. Just got to make this screen bigger so I can see it. Hang on one second. All right, so we're going to do a search by school code. So we're going to do 00290.
May I ask you a quick question that we have?
Sure.
From the chat?
Yes, go right ahead.
Someone asked if you don't know your housing plan for next year, going back to the choosing commuter or residential, if you don't know your housing plan next year, what's the best answer to choose if you're still weighing those options?
Well, if you're torn between two, if you're thinking, well, maybe I'll live off campus, I don't know, me live on campus, you can, I mean, it really doesn't matter the one that you're leaning most to. If you feel like, well, I might be living on campus, go ahead and select on campus. For most schools, if you don't put anything there, they will default to on campus in most cases. But and you can always change that. What you put on the FAFSA is not what you're required to do. So if you put on campus, that doesn't mean that you have to live on campus at that particular school. If you list off campus, it doesn't mean that you can't change your mind and move onto campus into a dorm. So again, this helps the schools determine how to set up your financial aid based on their cost of attendance, on what their average cost is for a student who might live on campus versus a student who might live off campus. But all of these things can be changed once you get there and finalize. So don't worry about that. Just select whatever you feel like you're leaning toward at that particular point, and just know that you can change that later. So we're going to click search here, and it's going to bring up, oh, look, another Greensboro school, North Carolina A&T State University. So you click that, click continue, and it says select housing plan. And again, you can see here that little information button that comes up. Again, as I said before, whatever you select, you can change it. You can put off campus here for if you want. It doesn't really matter. If you want to add more schools, you just do that same thing. Click add more schools, do either search by city and state, or if you know the school code, just go ahead and enter it in and just verify that that is the school you want. So we're going to use those two schools and click continue. But again, I don't want you to get hung up on the housing thing. Okay, don't let that be a showstopper. Just pick something, and if you change your mind later, it's cool. Student marital status. You better be single. Just teasing. You can choose whatever your current marital status is, and it is as of the date that you're filing the FAFSA. And here's where, again, parents, if you are doing this FAFSA for your student, remember, this is for the student. Remember, this is the student's marital status. So don't inadvertently fill this out based on your marital status and select married, okay? So the student is single, and we're going to continue. So does the student, and here again, this is very important. If you are the parent and you're in here and you're filling out the student section, remember, this is the student. Do you, the student, have dependent children that you will have be taking care of more than half of their support between July 1st and June 30th? So you would say no. And same thing for other dependents, no. This is anyone other than a spouse or children who live with you. And again, this is from the student's perspective. And parents, you'll have an opportunity to enter your information later. So this is a section where we determine, where the FAFSA determines whether or not a student is dependent or independent. And that simply means whether or not the student is going to be required to provide parent information on this form. So these are the questions. Are you currently serving on active duty in the armed forces? Are you a veteran? At any time since you turned age 13, were both your parents deceased? Were you in foster care, or were you a dependent or ward of the court? And again, these are very specific legal definitions. As determined by court in your state of legal residence, are you or were you an emancipated minor? Again, this is a very specific legal status. And does someone other than your parent or step parent have legal guardianship of you, as determined by a court in your state of legal residence? And again, this is not a situation where maybe your parents have signed a form that says it's okay for your aunt or maybe your grandparents to make medical decisions for you at school, or to pick you up at school, or that kind of thing. Or maybe you lived a semester with another relative to finish out a semester of high school or something. That's not what this means. This means that there has been a court order that says that someone other than a parent is responsible for you, legally responsible for you, and their parents' rights have been severed, that the parent has no longer has any rights. So typically you're going to say none of the above, okay, for most of these. And I know that there are some situations where you may answer differently. And if that is your situation, then you answer the question according to your status, okay? And if you have concerns about that or questions about that, then you should definitely reach out to the financial aid office, of any of the financial aid offices, for a little bit more guidance. This is specifically for homelessness. It's on or after July 1st, 2021. So that's this year, this July. Were you homeless, or were you self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? Now, this is a very specific set of circumstances. If you say yes to that, then you are going to be required to provide some documentation, possibly from your high school McKinney-Vento liaison. And if you don't know what that means, then that means you're probably not homeless or at risk of being homeless. So typically most people are going to be able to select no. If you have to select yes, then follow the guidance and reach out again to the financial aid office if you need any help or any assistance in that area. So based on your answers, you're considered a dependent student. So that means that the student will have to provide parental information. And again, in a typical setting, you just select the button that says, I will provide information about my parents. If you're in a situation where you had to answer yes to all of those, you had to answer no to all of those questions, but you're still not able to provide your parents information, this is where you want to definitely reach out to the financial aid office of the school that you're planning to attend. And that will provide you some resources and some guidance on how best to complete this application. For the purposes of our demonstration tonight, we are going to provide information about the parents. So we just select that. Yes, go ahead.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I have a question that I missed in the chat, and this is just about a unique situation. So remember the question that you had about if you would be it would be your first time attending college. So this student in particularly, if they attend a middle college and therefore that means they have a college transcript, would they choose the option to register as a first-year student, or would they choose transfer?
That's a good question. For the purpose of the FAFSA, they could either choose previous college or first time, never been to college first year, one of those two. For the purposes of determining college credits, that's going to be determined through the admissions process and through, what's called a transfer articulation, looking at how many credits have been earned and assigning those credits to determine your grade level in college from freshman to sophomore or junior. But for the purpose of the FAFSA, I would select either never attended college before or attended before first year, because basically it is your first year. It doesn't hurt to do that. if your college credits come in and put you at a grade level above that, again, that can be amended as you go through the process. But when your FAFSA is first issued to the financial aid offices, typically your credits won't be assigned at that particular point anyway. So it's just probably just go ahead and put never attended first year, or either whatever that second option was. Now I can't remember what that second option was. And let your transfer credit, your credits, your articulation take place through the admissions process. And like I said, all of that will get meshed and get straightened out once you are fully admitted and your credits have been assigned.
Yes,
I
and I
know
would
it
just
sounds a
add,
little convoluted.
yeah, it's
but,
very confusing. I will just add also that you because you attended middle college, I'm assuming that you did not receive financial aid to do the
Correct.
dual enrollment. So with that being said, for the sake of your FAFSA, I would select never attended college. However, understanding that through the admissions office, you will need to, they're going to ask you to not only submit a high school transcript, but you will also need to request a transcript from, I'm assuming GTCC as well, to show those credits. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, good call, Brandy, because you're right. They will need all transcripts, including the middle college transcripts from whatever, GTCC or wherever you're attending. Yeah, good call. Okay, so you're going to provide parent information, and this will, again, you're identifying this little section here just kind of takes you through some of the different scenarios. So your parents live together, they're either married or unmarried. So in this case, you would report information about both of your parents. If your parents are divorced and separated and you live with one parent more than the other, then you would report information about the parent that you live with more in the last 12 months and the parent information. And if that parent has remarried, then that parent's spouse's information would be provided as well. Parents are divorced and separated and you live with both parents equally. In this situation, you would provide information about the parent who provided more financial support over the last 12 months. And similarly, if that parent is remarried, then you would report that about that parent and their spouse. If you were legally adopted, then you would report information about your adopted parents, okay? All right, so this is an information section. You don't actually get to choose anything in there, but they just give you those scenarios so that you can understand which parent is gonna be appropriate to enter the information for. So again, this is parent information from the student's perspective. So as of today, what is the marital status of your parents? So parents, here's where you get to shine. So now you can put in that you are never married, unmarried, both living together, married or remarried, divorced or separated or widowed. We're just going to select married. When did your parents get married? I think for I think I put 2000. So we're going to roll with that. January 2000, I mean, they were just really very romantic, deciding that. So going to next, enter your parent's social security number. So I just happen to have one here. Hopefully this isn't someone's number. And so typically they will blot that out. So, okay, parents' last name, parents' first initial, we're going with dad. And I think I put dad's date of birth as November 11th, 1980. And email address, I think I put, oh, here it is. I'll just copy it. That's a lot easier than me typing it. Okay, and let's re-enter that. So this is, again, this is about parent one, first parent, parent one, and you get to call the shots on who that is. You can start with mom or dad, doesn't matter, and then continue. And then you're going to enter information about the second parent. Okay. And same thing. And this is mom. And mom's date of birth is, Mom, what is your date of birth? What did we decide we were going to do for you? January 1. Oh, doesn't really matter because I'm not able to do anything with their information anyway, because it's a demo. So for parent 2, you just need their social, last name, and date of birth. You don't need an email address for the second parent. And then parent state of legal residence. And remember, that's why it was important that I wanted to put that North Carolina. So yes, have your parents lived in North Carolina for at least 5 years? Yes. Okay, so now information about your parents' dependents. And this, again, you don't put anything for you. This is other students or other siblings in your household other than you. So if you have, excuse me, other siblings living in your household, what you can do, you want to make sure that you put that in there. So let's say there are 2 others. Let's say you have a brother and a sister. And they're not, this one is any other dependent. So that means like if there's anybody else living, let's say they have a cousin or you have someone else who's getting more of their support from them. I want to keep this clean. So we're just going to do 0. So we click next, and then you get again a summary of what you entered. Now, number in college. So out of 3 dependents in your parents' household, how many will be in college? So that's you and these 2 siblings. How many of those will be in college? So we're going to say you're going to be the only one in college. So 1 in college. If your parents are going to college, you do not include them on your FAFSA. Parents, you can include your child if you are a student and you're completing a FAFSA. You can include them on yours. So now, as you can see, we've gone through the student demographics, school section, dependency status, parent demographics. So now we're getting to parent financials. So for parent tax information, for 2020, have your parents completed their IRS income tax return or another tax return? Hopefully you have. So you have an option to select already completed, will file, or not going to file. So we're going to select already completed. And you'll see once you select that, then you get the option to select what type of income tax return did your parents file. Typically, it's going to be the IRS 1040. If you did file a foreign tax return, select that. If you had a tax return from Puerto Rico or US territory, you want to select that. So we're going to select 1040. And for what is your parents' tax filing status according to their tax return. And here's where you might need to have that tax return handy just to see, how did they file? Did it file single, head of household? Well, since they are married, the option would be either married filed joint return or married filed separate return. So typically it's married filed joint. And if you select that, then you get this notice that says you may be able to use the IRS data retrieval tool. And this is a good thing because this is a way for you to pull in your tax information without having your tax return handy, without having to worry about having that. Because this is a demo site, it's not going to let me connect to the 1040, to the data retrieval tools. So if you did that, if you selected proceed to the IRS, then it would ask which parent are you going to use, and parents, here's where you would need your FSA ID to log into that site. And yes, Brandy. Did you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I was just gonna add a few things about the data retrieval tool once you finish your spiel.
Oh, okay, sure. And your parent would add that in there. So I'm gonna go back to skip the IRS and complete manually. Go ahead, Brandy.
Hello everyone. I just wanted to add that as far as using the data retrieval tool, this is a great way to ensure that you are not marked for verification. And so what verification is a certain percentage of FAFSA applications are randomly selected where they want you to verify the information that you have in fact submitted. So linking it to the data retrieval tool is very helpful for you all. I will say that as you all use that data retrieval tool and you enter that information and it asks for your parent name and your address, be sure that you are entering it exactly as it appears on the tax return. For example, if I lived at Sayers Guilford Road and road was spelled RD dot rather than ROAD, please ensure that when you're trying to link to the data retrieval tool, you have typed the address and name and everything else exactly how it appears on your tax returns. Sometimes that could be a barrier when trying to connect them. Like if you put apartment and spell out apartment rather than putting the abbreviation. So again, just be sure to match it to whatever appears on your tax return, whether that's your 1040 or W-2, etc.
Yeah, good point. Brandon, I do want to clarify something on the verification issue. Using the data retrieval tool does not exempt you from verification. It will make verification easier because you won't have to actually turn in tax documents because you've already pulled that information in from the IRS. However, there may be other documents that the school will ask for in that verification process. As you pointed out, because verification is randomly selected, so they do, select people randomly. People who use the data retrieval tool do get selected for verification, but it makes that whole process a lot easier. You don't have to collect as many documents. Yeah, I don't want to scare anybody. They well, Brandy told me I wasn't going to get selected. So yeah, you might. It will make it a lot easier though. It'll make the process a lot easier, a lot smoother. Yeah. So we're going to manually enter some information here for the taxes. And trust me, these are made up numbers. I don't know anybody. I don't make this. This is not my salary. Okay. I'm just making up numbers. And because I did, and you can, if you don't have an idea, you can do an income estimator. I mean, you still have to know a lot of stuff in order to use that. If you're not able to use a data retrieval tool, I would suggest getting your tax return out and taking a look at it. You will need to know. Now, one thing the data retrieval tool will not do is pull in the individual income for each parent. So you will need to know that, and that's information that will come from the W-2s. So, because each individual parent has to have their information, you have to enter in information from each individual parent. Let me see if I can find my breakdown here. So parent one, we're just going to do 53. Okay, and then for parent two, and so then you go to the next slide. And again, we're still in the parent financials. Again, the amount of your parents' income tax return, income tax paid. So this is not the withholding. And again, if you're using the data retrieval tool, this information will be automatically transferred. But if you're entering it manually, it will not. So enter the amount of your parents' income tax for 2020, not the amount that they paid. And again, the little blurb will tell you, this is from, if you look on the tax return, it will tell you this is where it's going to come from. So you want what's on that line, okay? All right, so let me close that up. And again, these little help buttons are so handy. As you saw there, it tells you exactly where you need to go to get that information. So I think for the purposes of my little play family here, I think they paid, not withheld, but how much the government kept of the taxes that were withheld from their pay. Maybe that's a better way of putting that. So for this family, now we're into some additional questions. We're still on the financial section. They're going to ask if you had any of these things. Typically, what we are, not our joke, but what we typically tell students in our office, if you don't know what these mean, it probably doesn't apply to you. If you were not in the military, then you would not have had any combat pay. Now, if you are in the military, this may apply to you. So again, you want to make sure you click that little help button so that you're making sure you're putting in the correct information. If this is your first time in college, you have not received any college grants or scholarships. So therefore, it's unlikely that that's reported. Now, for parents, if you are in college, it's possible that you have reported some of this on your tax return. And again, that's where you will take a look at your return, and it will tell you exactly where to go. And this is another good publication, IRS publication 970, to get a little bit more help and a little more resources on where to find that information and what needs to go in there, what types of aid is considered taxable income. The purpose of our demonstration, we're going to say 0. Education credits that you may have taken, again, if you file that on Schedule 3 on your tax return, that information is going to be is where you pull that from, education credits. So that's where that would come from, and you would just pull that information out and put that here. Untaxed portions of IRA distributions and pensions. So if you have pulled out any pensions and it's on your tax return, it's non-taxed income, and it would go right in this area here. Now, if you pulled out money and you rolled it over into another account, you do not include that, okay? All right. And then IRA deductions and payments to, so if you're self-employed or other plans, so again, let's take you to the tax return. It's where you'll see that, it's where that will go here. And then any IRA deductions that you listed on your return from line 19. So that's where that would go on that form, on that line. For our purposes, we're going to use 0. And then tax exempt interest from IRS form 1040 line 2A. So if you had interest income, but some of that was exempt from taxes, and trust me, at this point, my mind is blank. I cannot think of an example of that. But typically the form that you get, the 1098, I think it's a 1098 form that you get, 1099, sorry, 1099 interest form would indicate whether or not that interest is taxable. So that would be going there. So we're just going to use all zeros here. So again, we're still in the financial information. So did you have any child support that you paid out because of divorce or separation? So you would include that. You don't include support for children that are in the household with you. Earnings from a co-op. Again, you can read the little blurb here that will go into details on how much. So this is if you're in a co-op program. So parents, if you're not in a college program of that nature, that would be 0. And then taxable earnings from need-based employment programs such as work study. So if you had a work study job, if you, the parent had a work study job, you would put that in here. These are things that are going to be excluded from consideration. So they're not going to count that in your income or in your assets. So if you did have work study earnings, don't worry, it doesn't hurt you. So it doesn't get counted. So that's something to keep in mind for next year. When you're doing that, if you have a job on campus, you don't have to worry about that hurting you. It does not hurt you going forward. Okay, so here's some more. Untaxed income, child support received. So if you received any child support, again, if you're a foster care parent, you do not include foster care or adoption payments. If you are in the military, or if you're a religious person, if you're a clergy or pastor and you have in-kind services, let's say, for example, housing provided for you by the parish or something of that nature, that the value of that would go here. Same thing for military, those military benefits that are paid for housing allowances, that would go here. This information on tax deferred pension and plans are going to come from your W-2 form. So I'd hope, I'm I think they have it. Yeah, they do. They have an example of where that's going to come from. So when you look at your W-2, you're going to look under box 12. And this is where that information is going to come from. Okay. And it tells you which box, which codes. You're going to look boxes 12A through 12D, and you're looking for codes D, E, F, G, and H and S. Veterans non-education benefits such as disability, death, pension, dependency, and indemnity, and or VA educational work study allowances. Again, if you're not a veteran, this would not apply to you. If you are a veteran, you would make sure that you enter that. It tells you what types of benefits that would be entered in here. You do not include a GI Bill, dependent education assistance, or any veterans voc rehab. None of that stuff would go in, would be entered in that. It's only these types of disability, death pension, and work study allowances. Okay, and other untaxed income not reported, such as workers' comp or disability benefits. So all of that would go in here. So we're doing zeros for this, and we're running close to time here. So I was trying to rush through this, but still give you good information. So as of today, does the total amount of your parents' current assets exceed $3,200? So what do they mean when they say parent assets? So this includes cash in the bank, in your savings account, in your checking account. If you own a business, the value of the business. If you have an investment farm, that would be included. Any other real estate, if you have rental property, that would go. Stocks, bonds, all of this would be included. Now, you would not include the value of the home that you live in. You would also not include any of your retirement accounts. So your 401k would not be included in here. If you had any other type of pension fund or annuities, those kinds of things would not get included in here. So I know it's a lot of stuff to wade through, but here for most people, it's only going to be your cash that you have in the bank, and your savings or checking account, and it really is money and cash. So what's in your wallet? What's in your wallet? Sorry, I just had to do that commercial thing. So for our family, we're going to say no, because I mean, really, who has any money right now? And then we're going to go ahead on. And so now we've done all of the parent financials. So now we're at the student financials. We're in the home stretch. So it says you must provide information from your 2020 tax return. So you, the student, we're back to the student now. Have you completed your IRS income tax return? Well, you've been in school, so you are not going to file. So it says based on your responses, you are not eligible to transfer your information from the IRS form. So we're going to click continue. And now they will ask you, how much did you earn from work? So you were in school all of 2020. So we're just going to say, well, you didn't work. You didn't have any earnings. And we're going to just click 0. And if you did, you would put in the amount and then move to the next form. So you have the similar questions about the child support, earnings from a co-op, taxable earnings from need-based employment. This is your first year in college. So none of this applies to you. So you're going to put zeros and move on. Untaxed income, if you had child support that you received, you would put that in. Again, the same explanation for that we have for the parents. If you remember the military, you would put that in, those amounts in. You didn't have a W-2, you didn't work, so that doesn't apply to you. Same here, so these are going to be typically all zeros. Now this question here, money received or paid on your behalf, not reported elsewhere in this form. This does not mean like what your parents give you for an allowance, or maybe they paid for something, for a trip or something. That doesn't mean that. It does mean that money you receive from a parent or other persons whose financial information is not reported on this form, and that is not part of a legal child support agreement. So is money outside of child support, but that typically is, I mean, not like, grandmother gave you a birthday present, $50 for your birthday. No, that doesn't mean that. It means if somebody was systematically sending you or sending money for your support, that's not your parent, and that's not part of a child support agreement. So let's say you had an aunt that sent $500 a month for your support. That's what you would report here. Okay, so do you have any money? Do you have any money in your bank account? As of today, do you have any money in your bank account? You didn't work, so no, you don't have any money. Do you have any investments like real estate, not your home? And the net worth of your current businesses or farms or investments. So that would be 0 as well. Brandy and Tequila, I know I'm going through these very quickly, so let me know if there's any questions that anybody wants me to go back to. So we're we're almost done. So this is a summary of all of the information that you just entered. So as you see, we've gone through student demographics, the school selection, dependency status, parent demographics, parents' financials, and the student financials. And now we're at the point where you want to sign and submit. Again, you want to take time to go through this to make sure you've entered all of the information correctly. And each section is represented here. And if you see something that you entered incorrectly, you can always go back to that section and correct it, put in the right information. So you've gone through that, you looked at everything. And I know I'm going through a little fast. And so student financials. So now we're getting down to the point where you want to submit and sign. So you can print this out so that you can have a record of that. And I always encourage people to, anything that gives you an option to print it, or at the very least save it as a PDF document so that you can go back and look at it later. So we're going to click continue. And now it's going to take us to the sign and submit section. So this is very important that you read this, because this is telling you that by signing this, you're not only saying that everything you put in this on this form is correct to the best of your knowledge, but is also saying that you don't owe any money back to the federal government for overpayments on any type of federal grants, that you're not in default on any student loans. You're also saying that by signing this, you verified that the information is accurate, and that if anyone requests verification of this information, so this is going back to the verification process. So you're agreeing that if a school asks you to provide the tax return or bank statements or any of the information you use to complete this FAFSA, that you are agreeing that you will provide that information so that they can verify that what you entered is correct. So once you've read all of that, you, the student, this is the student, I, Judith, last name, agree to the terms outlined, you would click this and then select sign FAFSA form. Now, because you already signed in with your FSA ID, your signature, you already signed it. So that was your signature. That was your signature, you signed it. Now you need to get a parent signature. So you need one parent signature. And so you would click this section that says provide parent signature. And then you can select which parent. So you can provide the signature for parent 1. And if you have, if your parent 1 has an FSA ID, use, again, same thing, you're reading over that agreement, you click continue. And here's where you would enter your FSA, your parent, your FSA ID and your password. Now, because this is a demo site, it's not going to let us do that, but you would click submit and sign the FAFSA form. If you're not able to do this, and here again, if you are in a situation where you're a parent of a student who is a citizen and you are a non-citizen, or you don't have a social security number, and I should have gone through that when the parent section and the parent, if you are a non-citizen and you don't have a social security number, you put in all zeros in the parent section for social security numbers. So you would not be able to use an FSA ID. So the other options to submit and sign would be to either print a signature page, or you can submit it without signatures. We don't suggest that. So you can click print a signature page, and then when you click that, it will open that up, and you'll just sign, the parent, you'll sign it, and mail it to this address, okay? And then you just click finish. And print out, definitely print the signature page. But I did kind of gloss over that Social Security part, but I did want you to know that if you are a parent without a Social Security number, that doesn't mean that it's a stop for you. Just enter all zeros in that section and move forward, okay? And so you'll get this parents submitted without signature page. And so we've done that. We printed that. Okay, why is it not letting me go to the next stage? Yes, we did that. We know, yeah. Okay. And it did this for me last time too, that it did not let me get to that section where, so we're going to do submit without signatures. So it'll let us at least get to that last section. Okay, so submit my FAFSA form now. That's the sign you want to look for. Hopefully you have the parent sign with FSA ID here. And then once you do that, you will get this message. Congratulations, your FAFSA form was successfully submitted. If you don't get this, you have not completed it. You have not submitted it. So you should get an acknowledgement. You'll have a confirmation number, a data release number, and you can print this page. You'll have you'll have the expected family contribution here. It will also give you an estimate of your student loan estimate, and it may give you an estimate of your Pell Grant eligibility, depending on what your EFC is. If your EFC is 0, you definitely will have that in there. All of this information will be popped up for you, and you can print that out so that you can keep that page. You are going to also get an email notification once you've completed this. And then you will get what's called a student aid report that has, again, a summary of all of the information that you provided and instructions on what happens next. I don't know if I have a sample copy. I actually might have a sample copy of a student aid report. I'll see if I can find that. I'm going to stop sharing for a bit. Brandy, I'm sure you have some questions that have come in the chat. So we can use this time to maybe grab some of those questions while I find that copy of the student aid report and just show folks what that looks like.
All righty. Again, thank you all for tuning in. I know we're going a little bit over, but we want to provide an opportunity for you all to get your questions answered if you have not already. So let me, let's see, begin share my screen again as Ms. Slade finds that sample student aid report. And this is our opportunity for Q&A. I will now allow you to be able to unmute yourselves. And beginning now, you should be able to unmute yourself and ask the question that you may have, or place it in the chat. We'll allow just a minute for that since we are a little over time.
Okay, so I did find that. I'm just going to put it on the screen.
Okay, here, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, very quickly here. Okay, did it do it? Nope, it did not. Or did it?
I can see the student aid report. If
Oh,
you can
okay,
make it a little
good.
larger. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. So when you get that, you'll see the aid year. You want to double check and make sure you did the correct aid year. Expected family contribution will be here. If you see a little asterisk, that means that your application was selected for verification. And it will tell you here whether or not it was selected. And as you read through this, it will give you some next steps, what needs to happen. And as you can see here, again, the student aid report will give you your aid eligibility for for the Pell Grant. And then again, it will go through all of the questions that you answered on there. So you can see all of that stuff would be in there. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because I know we want to make sure we get all of the other questions. So what are our questions? What do we got?
Brandy, I'm looking in the chat. I don't see any additional questions that anyone has typed. Do you see anything on your side?
I do not. It looks like we just got one in the chat.
Well,
Oh yeah.
no, go ahead.
It's just asking, how do you obtain your student aid report? And I can answer that question or pass it over to Ms. Slade.
Yeah, go ahead, Brandy.
So after you submit your FAFSA, you generally get an email confirmation to the email address that you'll be using, that you use to create your FSA ID. So please make sure that's the email address you can continue to access for years to come, because you will do your FAFSA each year. But after that, it typically sometimes, again, as she said, it gives you an estimated page at the end where you did submit, but it typically within 1 to 3 business days, you receive a copy of what's called your student aid report, and it will appear as it did on Ms. Slade's screen.
Yeah, and you can also go back to the FAFSA website and log back in and view, you can click on view a SAR, view the student aid report, but yeah, you should get an email notification. You all are very quiet. Either I put you to sleep or it was just like, oh, this is too much.
I think
Well,
you gave some.
Go ahead.
I think you gave some outstanding information. It was great.
Yeah, I see a question here. So Pell Grant awarded. Yeah, so it is based on not just income alone. It's based on all of the information that's provided on the FAFSA. Certainly income is a major piece of that. One family whose income is $80,000 with 2 in a household may not qualify, for some stuff, or say, but, another family who's, 6 in a household with 80, so it depends on not just the raw income, but also household size and a number of other factors, assets as well. But yeah, just the short answer is, yeah, it's based on the calculated need.
I will also add to go ahead and submit your FAFSA regardless of if you think that you will qualify for aid or not. Even outside of being eligible for need-based aid, specifically from the federal government, there are many scholarship opportunities, such as Say Yes Guilford, that do require you to fill out your FAFSA regardless of your income and can lead to some additional funds. So please don't hesitate to do that or assume that you may not get any aid.
That is so true. You don't want to leave any money on the table. If anyone needs any additional help, oh, go ahead. There's a question.
It looks like we have one more question in the chat, particularly about Say Yes Guilford, and I'm going to drop an email here where you can email any questions. It is not too late to apply for your Say Yes Guilford scholarship. We did open on October 1st, just like the FAFSA, but we ask that you complete your application as well as indicate your school enrollment on your Say Yes Guilford portal by June 1st. And it looks like we have another question in the chat. If you wanted to go to another college in state, can you put that in the school section, private or state? Yes, it is not restricted to the state of North Carolina. You may do it, again, you may use the school code, or either you can search by zip code, you can search by city, or either the name of the school, whichever is easiest for you. But you are limited to 10 schools that you can submit on your FAFSA. So just keep that in mind.
I'm going to put a link here. If anyone needs, every Friday we do virtual FAFSA workshops from 1 to 3. So we have 2 more coming up this Friday and on the 19th. They are virtual via Zoom. They're not group. So you can sign up for a 15-minute slot if you have FAFSA questions. We could do screen sharing. So I'm going to put that in there, and you could just register for a slot. and you'll have, either me or, another staff member. It doesn't matter. You do not have to be coming to UNCG, okay? So we're just there to help people get the FAFSA completed. So if you want to do that, I put that in there. It's just type go.uncg.edu/FAFSA Friday, and you can select a time slot from the 2 upcoming workshops. We're there, like I said, 1 to 3 p.m. every Friday. And you can always email questions if you don't get a chance to get your FAFSA done and you feel you just need some help. But like Brandy said, this video will be up, so you can, go back and watch it later.
Slade.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course. In addition to the great resources that Ms. Slade just mentioned, some live, personalized one-on-one help, there are also some great resources that are through the College Foundation of North Carolina that I wanted to share with you all as you go back and look at this video and or complete your FAFSA. So there is local assistance. This is the perfect example of some local assistance that we had. But if you visit the CFNC site, then you and you're in their FAFSA section, you will see here that you can sign up for personal FAFSA assistance, but also look at some FAFSA resource videos, including some local assistance, depending upon your zip. You can search in your area and your zip code. I'm assuming you all are here in Guilford County, but just in that area. And moving on to the next slide, there are also some FAFSA video resources. I know that we ran through a lot within this hour or so. So like even going back to the beginning, where how do you even create your FSA ID so that you can begin all of this process? These are some resources that CFNC has greatly provided on their site. And these are some video resources that you can use and assist you as you go back through and ensure that you have successfully completed your FAFSA. And I will also hand it over to Tequila to see if she has anything to add before we wrap up this evening.
Thank you, Brandy. So I will say, CFNC, we do have a lot of resources to help students to be career and college ready. And so I just want to, and I'll drop this in the chat, to invite you to visit our cfnc.org/events page, because we are constantly providing content, whether your students are ready to go to college or if you also have younger students. We are here to support you every step of the way.
All righty. So again, thank you all for tuning in this evening. This session is being recorded and will be available on YouTube by the beginning of next week. So if you want to sit down over Thanksgiving break with your family and go ahead and knock out your FAFSA, that will be a great time to do so. And again, we want to thank Ms. Slade for coming out tonight and representing UNCG and helping us walk through the process. And I believe, that was Tequila placing the resources in the chat. I just wanted to ensure no one else had any questions. But again, thank you all for your time tonight. We apologize for going a little bit over, but we hope that you all have all the information that you need or have a way that you can connect to some resources to finish up your FAFSA. Thank you.